When 5-year-old Elon Musk walked onto the stage at Austin Convention Center, 20,000 people expected to hear something cute from Elon Musk's little boy. Maybe a simple "thank you" or "I love my daddy." Nobody expected him to reveal the biggest secret in human history. Nobody expected him to expose hidden climate data that world leaders had kept from the public for years. And nobody expected him to announce that Mars wasn't just Elon's dream of exploration. It was humanity's escape plan from a dying Earth. In less than 10 minutes, X's brave words would trigger emergency government meetings, crash stock markets around the world, and inspire millions of children to demand the truth about their planet's future. But it all started with one simple sentence that changed everything. The bright lights at Austin Convention Center made everything look like a movie set. 20,000. People filled every seat in the huge room. News cameras pointed at the small stage like hungry eyes. People held their phones up, ready to record something special. Everyone was waiting to hear from Elon Musk. Most people just called him X. He was only 5 years old, but he was about to say words that would change the world forever. X stood backstage with his mom and dad. His small hands shook a little as he held a piece of paper. The paper had his speech written on it in big, simple letters that he could read easily. "You don't have to do this, sweetie," his mom, Grimes, whispered. Her real name was Claire, but everyone in the music world knew her as Grimes. She knelt down and smoothed X's dark hair. "You can just wave and say hello." X looked up at his mom with serious brown eyes. "No, Mom. I have to tell them. Kids need to know the truth, too." His dad, Elon Musk, checked his watch. In 2 minutes, X would walk onto that stage. Elon's face looked worried. He knew what his son was about to say. He knew it would shock millions of people around the world. "Are you sure about this, buddy?" Elon asked quietly. "Once you say these words, everything will change. For our family. For everyone." X nodded firmly. Even though he was just 5, he understood that some things were more important than staying safe and quiet. The event host, Dr. Sarah Chen, smiled at the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special surprise today. Elon Musk's son, X, would like to say a few words." The crowd started clapping. They thought they were about to hear something cute from a little kid. Maybe he would thank everyone for coming. Maybe he would say he loved his daddy. They had no idea what was really coming. X walked onto the stage. His tiny feet made almost no sound on the big platform. A man quickly lowered the microphone so X could reach it. The huge room went completely silent. X looked out at all the faces staring at him. Row after row of important people. Scientists, world leaders, business, owners, reporters. Everyone waited to hear what a 5-year-old had to say. For just a second, X felt scared. These were grown-ups, smart grown-ups. Who was he to tell them anything? But then, he remembered why he was there. He thought about all the kids at his school who didn't know what was coming. He thought about all the families who weren't getting ready. He thought about all the people who trusted their leaders to tell them the truth. X took a deep breath and leaned toward the microphone. "Hello, everyone," he said. His voice was small but clear. Everyone in the big room could hear every word. "My name is X. I want to tell you something important about my family." The audience smiled. A few people went, "Aw," because X looked so tiny next to the huge microphone. They still thought this would be something sweet and simple. X looked right at the main camera. He knew millions of people were watching on TV and computers all around the world. His next words made everyone stop smiling. "My dad has a big secret," X said slowly and clearly. It's about why he really wants to go to Mars. It's not what you think. Gasps filled the room like air being sucked out. People sat up straighter, in their chairs. Elon, watching from the side of the stage, turned pale as paper. His hands started shaking. Reporters in the audience grabbed their phones and started typing fast. Something big was happening. They could feel it. X paused and looked at his dad. Elon's eyes were wide with worry, but he nodded slightly. It was okay. X could keep going. But first, X said with a sad little smile, "Let me tell you a story." The room was so quiet, you could hear people breathing. 20,000 people leaned forward in their seats. Nobody moved. Nobody whispered. Everyone waited. Outside the convention center, normal life continued. Cars drove by. Birds sang in the Texas sun. People walked their dogs and bought coffee and went about their day. None of them knew that inside this building, a 5-year-old boy was about to reveal secrets that would change everything. Secrets about Earth's future. Secrets about why the richest man in the world really wanted to build cities on Mars. Secrets that would make millions of people around the world stop what they were doing and pay attention. He clutched his piece of paper tighter. The story he was about to tell would shock everyone. It would make some people angry and some people scared. But X believed it would also give people something they needed even more than safety. It would give them the truth. 6 months ago, X began, his small voice carrying across the silent convention center. "I found something in my daddy's desk." The audience held their breath as X told his story. It was September 15th, 2024. X was playing in his dad's office at the SpaceX building in Hawthorne, California. The office had huge windows that looked out at the factory floor where workers built rockets every day. X loved watching the sparks fly as people welded metal pieces together. X was only 4 years old then, but he was different from other kids his age. While most 4-year-olds were learning their ABCs, X could read chapter books. While other kids played with toy cars, X asked questions about rocket engines and computer code. His teachers called him gifted. His parents just called him curious. Maybe too curious for his own good. That Tuesday afternoon, X sat on the carpet, in his dad's office, building with colorful blocks. Elon was in a meeting down the hall. The office was quiet except for the sounds of rocket building outside the windows. X finished his block tower and looked around the room. His dad's big wooden desk caught his attention. It had lots of drawers, but one had a small silver lock on it. X had never seen what was inside that drawer. Being 4 years old and very curious, X wanted to know what his dad kept locked away. X climbed onto the leather chair behind the desk. The locked drawer was right at his eye level. He pulled on the handle, but it wouldn't open. The lock was small but strong. X thought for a moment. He remembered watching his dad open other locks around the house. Sometimes locks had numbers you had to get right. Sometimes they had keys. But this lock looked different. X noticed something interesting. The lock had tiny buttons that you could push. 4 little buttons in a row. X realized it was a combination lock that used buttons instead of numbers. What would his dad use as the combination? X tried his own birthday, 0504. Nothing happened. He tried his dad's birthday, 0628. Still nothing. Then X had another idea. His dad talked about Mars all the time. Mars was the 4th planet from the Sun. X tried 0004. Click! The lock opened. X's heart started beating fast. The drawer slid open easily now. Inside were papers, photos, and a small black notebook. X picked up the first paper. At the top, it said, "Project Phoenix, Confidential," in big red letters. Below that were words X didn't understand. Timeline critical, population displacement, and Earth evacuation protocol. Even though X was smart for his age, some of the words were too hard, but he understood enough to feel worried. Evacuation meant leaving a place when it was dangerous. Protocol meant a plan for what to do. Why would people need to evacuate Earth? X set the paper aside and picked up a photo. It showed Earth from space, just like pictures he'd seen in books. But something was wrong with this picture. The parts that were supposed to be white with ice looked gray and thin. The blue oceans had strange brown spots in them. Another photo showed a map of the world, but it looked different too. Some places that were supposed to be land were covered in blue, like they were underwater. Other places that were supposed to be green were yellow and brown, like deserts. X's hands started shaking a little. These pictures made Earth look sick. He, too, heard footsteps in the hallway. His dad was coming back from his meeting. X quickly put everything back in the drawer and closed it. The lock clicked shut automatically. "Hey, buddy, what are you up to?" Elon asked as he walked into the office. He ruffled X's hair and smiled. But X noticed his dad looked tired. "Just playing with my blocks," X said. His voice sounded normal, but inside his mind was racing with questions. What was Project Phoenix? Why did Earth look sick in those photos? What did evacuation protocol mean? That night at their house in Austin, Texas, X couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the papers and photos in his dad's locked drawer. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the picture of Earth looking gray and brown instead of blue and green. X's bedroom was on the second floor of their big house. His parents' bedroom was down the hall. Downstairs was his dad's home office, where Elon worked late most nights. At midnight, X crept out of his bed. The house was dark and quiet. Everyone else was sleeping. X tiptoed down the stairs, being careful not to make any noise on the wooden steps. The door to his dad's home office was closed but not locked. X turned the handle slowly and peeked inside. His dad's computer was still on. The screen glowed in the dark room. X had watched his dad type his password many times when they worked on coding projects together. It was Mars 2024. Easy to remember, because his dad always talked about getting to Mars by 2024. X climbed into the big desk chair and typed the password. The computer unlocked, showing his dad's desktop. X clicked on a folder called Climate. Data restricted. Inside were hundreds of files with names like Ice Sheet Collapse Timeline, and Sea Level Rise Projections, and Temperature Increase Models. X opened a file called Summary for Leadership Meeting. Even though some words were hard, X could understand the main ideas. Earth's temperature was getting hotter, much faster than scientists had told people. Ice at the North and South Poles was melting 3 times faster than expected. Ocean levels would rise much higher than anyone had said publicly. Weather would become dangerous in many places where people lived. Billions of people might need to find new homes. X read for 2 hours, clicking through file after file. Each one told the same scary story. Earth was getting sick much faster than grown-ups were telling kids. But the scariest file was called Mars Colony Emergency Protocols. It talked about how many people could live on Mars if they had to leave Earth quickly. The number was much smaller than the number of people on Earth. Not everyone would be able to go to the safe place. X's eyes filled with tears as he read. Why weren't grown-ups telling kids about this? Why was it a secret? And why were they planning to save only some people? As the clock in the office chimed 2 a.m., X closed all the files and turned off the computer. He crept back upstairs to his bedroom, but he didn't sleep. Instead, he lay in his bed thinking about all the kids at his school, about his friends who played on playgrounds and rode bikes, and dreamed about what they wanted to be when they grew up. Did they deserve to know that their planet was getting sick? Did they deserve to help figure out what to do about it? X decided that they did. That night, lying in his dark bedroom with moonlight coming through his window, 4-year-old X made a decision that would change the world. He was going to tell everyone the truth. But first, X had to get through the next morning. The smell of pancakes filled the kitchen when X came downstairs. His mom, Grimes, stood at the stove, flipping golden pancakes shaped like rockets. She always made special breakfasts when she knew X was feeling worried about something. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she said with a smile. "You look tired. Did you have trouble sleeping?" X climbed onto his chair at the breakfast table. The kitchen was bright and cheerful, with big windows showing their backyard garden. It felt normal and safe. But X couldn't stop thinking about the scary files he'd read on his dad's computer. "Mom," X said quietly, poking at his rocket-shaped pancake with his fork. "Is Earth sick?" Grimes froze with the spatula in her hand. She turned around slowly to look at her son. "What do you mean? Baby? Like, is our planet getting hurt somehow?" Just then, Elon walked into the kitchen carrying his coffee mug. He was already dressed for work in his usual black t-shirt and jeans. When he heard X's question, his coffee mug shook slightly in his hand. "Why are you asking that, son?" Elon said carefully, sitting down across from X at the table. X looked up at his dad with serious brown eyes. "I saw things on your computer last night. Scary things about our planet." The kitchen went completely silent. Outside, birds sang in the Texas morning sunshine. But inside, the air felt heavy and thick. Elon set his coffee mug down with a soft clink. His face had gone pale. "X, you shouldn't go through my work files. Those are private, grown-up things." "But if they're about Earth, shouldn't everyone know? Kids live on Earth, too." Grimes quickly turned off the stove and sat down next to X. She wrapped her arms around him and pulled him close. "Sweetheart, sometimes adults worry about things that might never happen. We don't want to scare kids with our worries." But X was too smart to be fooled by gentle words. He had seen the fear in both his parents' eyes the moment he asked about Earth being sick. "Is that why you want to go to Mars, Dad? Because something bad might happen to Earth?" Elon stared at his son for a long moment. How could he explain to a 4-year-old that the world's smartest scientists were terrified about Earth's future? How could he tell his little boy that grown-ups were making plans to leave the planet because they weren't sure they could save it in time? "X," Elon said slowly, "going to Mars has always been my dream. I want humans to live on more than one planet so we can explore the universe. But that's not the only reason, is it?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. Grimes looked at her husband with worried eyes. They had talked about this moment many times. When would they tell X the truth about climate change? How much should a child know about the world's problems? They had planned to wait until X was older. Maybe 10 or 12. Old enough to understand, but not so young that it would give him nightmares. But X had found out on his own. Over the next few weeks, X started paying attention to everything. When his dad talked on the phone, X listened for words like climate, and temperature, and timeline. When grown-ups watched the news, X sat quietly nearby and heard reporters talk about extreme weather and rising sea levels. X also noticed that his parents were having more quiet conversations in their bedroom with the door closed. Sometimes his mom's voice sounded worried. Sometimes his dad sounded frustrated. One evening in early October, X was supposed to be in his room reading before bedtime. But he heard his parents talking in loud whispers downstairs. He crept to the top of the stairs to listen. "He's too young to know all this, Elon," his mom was saying. Her voice was tight with worry. "He's just 4 years old. He should be playing with toys and learning to ride a bike, not worrying about the end of the world." "But he already knows." "Something, Claire," his dad replied, using his mom's real name instead of Grimes. "And he's going to figure out the rest. He's brilliant, maybe too brilliant for his own good." "So, what do we do? Tell him everything? Let him carry this weight on his little shoulders?" "We prepare him," Elon said firmly. "All of them. X and his future brothers and sisters. The world is going to change, and our children need to be ready for it." "Ready for what? Ready to leave Earth? Ready to watch their planet die? Ready to help save it? Or help build a new home, if we can't?" X pressed his ear closer to the stair railing. His heart was beating so loud he was afraid they might hear it. "What? If we're wrong?" his mom asked. "What if the scientists find solutions faster than we think? What if we're scaring him for nothing? What if we're right, and we don't prepare him at all?" The conversation went quiet for a moment. Then X heard his mom start to cry softly. "I just want him to have a normal childhood," she whispered. "There's nothing normal about raising a genius during a climate crisis," Elon said gently. "But maybe that's exactly what the world needs. Maybe kids like X will see solutions that we're missing." X crept back to his bedroom and climbed into bed, but he didn't sleep for a long time. His parents were scared, really scared, and they were trying to protect him by keeping secrets. But X didn't want to be protected by lies. He wanted to help solve the problem, even if he was just a little kid. As X lay in his bed that night, looking out his window at the stars, he started thinking about how he could tell other people the truth. Not just kids at his school, but everyone. The idea that came to him was scary, but exciting. What if he could find a way to talk to the whole world at once? And thought about this question for days. How could a 4-year-old boy get millions of people to listen to him? He wasn't famous like his dad. He couldn't just call up TV stations and ask them to put him on the news, but then something happened that gave X an idea. It was a cold Tuesday morning in late October 2024. X was eating cereal at the kitchen table when he heard cars pulling into their driveway. Lots of cars. Through the big front window, X saw black SUVs parking in front of their house. "Who's here, Dad?" X asked. Elon looked up from his phone with a surprised expression. "Some business partners. We're having a meeting about future projects." Men and women in expensive suits started walking up to their front door. X recognized some of their faces from TV and magazines. There was Jeff Bezos, the man who started Amazon and built his own rocket company. There was Bill Gates, who created Microsoft. X saw other people he didn't know, but they all looked very important. "X," his mom said quickly, "why don't you go? Play in your room while the grown-ups talk?" But X was too curious. Instead of going to his room, he went to the big playroom upstairs. The playroom was right above his dad's study, and X knew a secret about the house that the adults had forgotten. When the house was built, the builders put air vents to move warm and cool air between rooms. One of those vents connected the playroom to the study below. If X lay down on the floor near the vent, he could hear everything that happened in his dad's office. X grabbed some toy cars and spread them on the floor near the vent, pretending to play. Then he put his ear close to the metal grate and listened. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," he heard his dad say. "What I'm about to share with you cannot leave this room." A woman's voice that X didn't recognize spoke next. "The latest climate models are worse than we thought. Much worse." X's heart started beating faster. They were talking about the same scary things he'd read on his dad's computer. How much worse? That was Jeff Bezos asking the question. "The ice sheets in Antarctica are melting 3 times faster than our worst predictions from last year," the woman continued. "The West Antarctic ice sheet could collapse completely within 15 years. "What does that mean for sea levels?" someone else asked. 20 feet higher than they are now. Maybe more." X heard several people gasp. Even lying on the floor upstairs, he could tell the adults were scared. "How long do we have?" Jeff Bezos asked. 20 years before the worst effects hit," his dad said. "Maybe less. The ocean currents that control weather around the world are already changing. We're going to see massive storms, terrible droughts, and flooding like nothing in human history." X pressed his ear closer to the vent. His hands were shaking. "Some places will become completely unlivable," Elon continued. "Billions of people will need to find new homes, and there aren't enough safe places on Earth for everyone." "That's why Mars isn't just an adventure anymore," Bill Gates said. "It's a lifeboat." "But Mars can only hold so many people," another voice said. "A few million at most, even if we build cities as fast as possible." The room went quiet for a long time. X could hear people shifting in their chairs. "So, who decides?" someone finally asked. "Who gets to go to the safe place, and who has to stay?" More silence. X felt sick to his stomach. "That's why we're here," his dad said slowly. "We need to start preparing. Not just the technology. We need to prepare people for what's coming." "The world will panic if we tell them everything," a man said. "The world will panic worse if we don't tell them anything," his dad replied firmly. "People deserve time to get ready, to say goodbye to the places they love, to help decide what we save and what we leave behind." "But how do we tell 7 billion people that their planet is dying?" Jeff Bezos asked. "Carefully," Bill Gates said. "We start with world leaders, then scientists, then slowly we share the information with everyone else." "How slowly?" the woman asked. 2 years, Elon said. "We give ourselves 2 years to figure out how to share this news without causing complete chaos." X felt tears running down his cheeks. 2 years? That meant they would wait until he was 6 years old to tell kids the truth. How many children would spend those 2 years making plans for a future that might not happen? "What about our families?" someone asked. "Do we tell our own children?" "Not yet," Bill Gates said. "Kids can't keep secrets like this, and they can't handle this kind of fear." X wanted to shout through the vent. Kids were stronger than adults thought. Kids could handle scary things if grown-ups helped them understand. "I disagree," his dad said. X felt a little proud that his father was standing up for kids. "My son already knows something is wrong. He's too smart to fool. And maybe that's good. Maybe we need kids to help us think of solutions we're missing." "Elon, he's 4 years old," Jeff Bezos said. "He's 4 years old and already reading at a high school level. He understands things that make most adults uncomfortable, and he asks questions that we should be asking ourselves." The meeting continued for another hour. X heard them talk about secret rocket ships that could carry more people to Mars. He heard them discuss building underground cities on Earth for people who couldn't leave the planet. He heard them argue about whether to tell world leaders or just start moving forward with their plans. By the time the meeting ended, X's mind was spinning with everything he'd learned. The most important people in the world were scared about Earth's future. They were making plans to save some people, but not everyone. And they were going to keep it secret for 2 more years, while regular families planned futures that might never happen. As X heard the adults saying goodbye downstairs, he made a decision that surprised even him. He wasn't going to wait 2 years to tell the truth. He was going to find a way to tell everyone right now. But how could a 4-year-old boy reach millions of people? X spent the next 3 days thinking about this problem. He watched how his parents communicated with the world. His dad posted on social media, but kids weren't allowed to have their own accounts. His mom made music videos, but X didn't know how to make music or videos. Then X remembered something important. His dad got invited to speak at big conferences all the time. Thousands of people came to hear Elon Musk talk about rockets and cars and the future. And those conferences were always on TV and the internet, where millions more people could watch. If X could somehow speak at one of those conferences, he could tell the whole world the truth at once. The problem was that 4-year-olds didn't get invited to give speeches at important events. X needed a different plan. He started by learning everything he could about how to help people understand scary things. X asked his tutor, Mrs. Rodriguez, to teach him about how to explain difficult ideas in simple words. "Why are you interested in this?" Mrs. Rodriguez asked during their lesson in the family's study room. "I want to help other kids understand things that might seem too hard for them," X said carefully. He couldn't tell her the real reason. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. "That's very thoughtful, X. The best way to explain something is to use words that everyone knows, and to give examples from real life." X practiced every day. He would stand in front of his bedroom mirror and pretend to give speeches to invisible audiences. He learned to speak slowly and clearly. He practiced looking directly at people when he talked to them. X also started paying attention to how adults talk to kids about scary things. When there was a thunderstorm, his parents explained that storms were natural and would pass. When X had bad dreams, they told him that dreams couldn't hurt him and that morning always came. But X noticed that adults never talked to kids about the really big, scary things. When the news showed floods or fires, grown-ups changed the channel. When kids asked questions about why polar bears were losing their homes, adults said, "Don't worry about it," instead of explaining X thought this was wrong. Kids lived in the same world as adults. They deserved to know what was happening to their planet. One evening in November, X was playing with building blocks in the living room while his parents watched the news. A reporter was talking about a hurricane that had destroyed houses in Florida. "Dad," X said, looking up from his blocks, "why are storms getting stronger?" Elon and Grimes looked at each other nervously. "Storms have always existed, buddy," Elon said. "Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small. But the man on TV said this hurricane was the strongest one ever recorded. Doesn't that mean something is changing?" X watched his parents struggle to answer. They wanted to protect him, but they also didn't want to lie to him. "Sometimes weather patterns change over time," his mom said carefully. "Scientists are studying why that happens." X knew his parents were trying to be gentle, but he also knew they weren't telling him the whole truth. He had read the files on his dad's computer. He knew exactly why storms were getting stronger. That night, X made an important decision. If adults wouldn't tell kids the truth, maybe a kid should tell them. X went to his desk and pulled out a notebook. He started writing a speech using simple words that other kids would understand. He wrote about Earth like it was a sick friend who needed help. He wrote about Mars like it was a backup home, in case the medicine didn't work fast enough. He practiced the speech every day, reading it out loud to his stuffed animals like they were a real audience. His teddy bear was the kids who needed to know the truth. His toy rocket was the adults who were trying to help. His model Earth was the planet that needed everyone to work together. X also started watching videos of other kids who had given important speeches. He found a video of a girl named Greta Thunberg who had talked to world leaders about climate change when she was a teenager. He watched how she stood straight and spoke with confidence, even though she was much younger than the adults she was talking to. If a teenager could tell grown-ups the truth about climate change, maybe a 4-year-old could too. But X still needed to figure out how to get in front of a big audience. The answer came in early December, when he overheard his dad talking on the phone. "Yes, I'll be speaking at the Global Future Summit in Austin," Elon was saying. "It's one of the most important conferences of the year. World leaders, scientists, business executives. About 20,000 people in person, plus millions watching online." X's heart started racing. The Global Future Summit was perfect. It was in Austin, so X wouldn't have to travel far from home. It would have the biggest possible audience, and most importantly, it was about the future, exactly what X wanted to talk about. After his dad hung up the phone, X walked into the kitchen where his parents were having coffee. "Dad, what's the Global Future Summit?" X asked, trying to sound casual. "It's a big conference where smart people talk about what might happen in the world over the next 50 years, Elon explained. "I'm giving a speech about space exploration and Mars colonies." "Can I come watch your speech?" X asked, his heart pounding. Elon and Grimes looked at each other. "It's pretty boring stuff for a little kid, buddy. Lots of adults talking about complicated things for hours and hours." "But I want to see you speak," X said. "I want to see what it's like when you talk to important people." "I don't know," his mom said. "You'd have to sit quietly for a very long time." "I can be quiet," X promised. "I just want to watch my dad be amazing." Elon smiled at that. "Well, when you put it that way. Okay, you can come, but you have to promise to sit still and not make noise during the speeches." "I promise," X said solemnly. But inside, X was already planning something much bigger than just sitting still and being quiet. Over the next few weeks, X learned everything he could about the Global Future Summit. He found out that it would be held at the Austin Convention Center on March 15, 2025. He discovered that the event would be broadcast live on television and streamed online to viewers around the world. X also learned something very interesting. Sometimes, family members of speakers were invited to say a few words on stage. Usually, it was just, "Thank you for coming," or "I'm proud of my dad." But it was a chance to speak to the entire audience. A chance to tell 20,000 people in person, and millions more around the world, the truth that adults had been hiding. X kept working on his speech, making it perfect. He practiced until he could say every word clearly and confidently. He prepared for the moment when he would have the whole world's attention. He was going to use that moment to change everything. X knew his plan was risky. If he told the world about the secret meetings and the scary climate files, his dad might get in serious trouble. Important people might be angry with their family. But X also knew that keeping secrets wasn't helping anyone. Every day that passed meant more kids lived without knowing what was coming. More families made plans for futures that might not happen. More time wasted while the planet got sicker. Into Irwedu, December 2024, X started working on the hardest part of his plan, keeping it secret while making it perfect. X spent hours in his room every afternoon, supposedly doing homework or playing quietly. But really, he was practicing his speech. He had memorized every word, but he wanted to make sure he could say it clearly, even if he felt nervous or scared. "Hello, everyone," X would whisper to his reflection in the bathroom mirror. "My name is X. I want to tell you something important about my family." He practiced the pause after those words, knowing that people would be confused at first. They would expect something cute from a little kid, not shocking secrets about the world's future. "My dad has a big secret," X would continue, watching his own eyes in the mirror. "It's about why he really wants to go to Mars." The hardest part was practicing the section where he would tell everyone about the secret meeting. X knew this would hurt his dad's feelings and maybe cause problems with his dad's important friends. But X believed people had the right to know what powerful adults were planning for their lives. One afternoon in January, X almost got caught. His mom walked into his room while he was standing on his bed, giving his speech to an audience of stuffed animals. "Who are you talking to, sweetie?" Grimes asked, looking around the room. X's heart started pounding. "Just practicing," he said. "Quickly!" "Practicing what?" X thought fast. "Practicing being brave. Sometimes I get scared of things, and I practice talking to people so I won't be shy." His mom's face softened. "Oh, honey, you're already one of the bravest kids I know." She sat on his bed and hugged him. "What kinds of things make you feel scared?" X almost told her everything right then. About the files on his dad's computer, about the secret meeting, about his plan to tell the world the truth. His mom was holding him so gently, and she smelled like the vanilla perfume she always wore. But X remembered what he'd heard the adults say during their secret meeting. Kids can't keep secrets like this, and they can't handle this kind of fear. If X told his mom about his plan, she would stop him. She would want to protect him from the scary responsibility he was choosing to take on. "Just normal kid stuff," X said instead. "Like talking in front of the class at school?" "Well, practicing is smart," his mom said, kissing the top of his head. "And remember, if you ever feel scared about anything at all, you can. Always talk to me and Dad." After she left, X felt guilty about not telling her the truth. But he also felt more determined than ever. Even his own mom didn't think kids could handle knowing about Earth's problems. That's exactly why someone needed to prove her wrong. X continued preparing through January and February. He researched everything he could about the Global Future Summit. He learned that it happened every 2 years, and this year's theme was Humanity's Next Chapter. Perfect for what X wanted to say. He also found out that the summit always had a moment during each speaker's presentation where family members could come on stage. It was supposed to be a sweet, personal touch that helped the audience connect with the speakers as real people, not just important names. Usually, spouses said thank you to the audience for listening. Sometimes kids just waved and looked cute. X had watched videos of past summits where little children got big smiles and applause just for walking across the stage. But X wasn't planning to just wave and look cute. 3 weeks before the summit, X made one final addition to his speech. He decided he needed to tell everyone not just about the secret meetings and the climate crisis, but about something even more important. He was going to tell them that kids wanted to help solve the problem too. X had been thinking about this for months. Every time adults talked about the future, they talked about protecting children from scary information. But they never talked about letting children help create solutions. What if kids had ideas that adults hadn't thought of? What if young people could see answers that older people missed because they weren't stuck thinking about things the old way? X added these thoughts to his speech, practicing the new words until they felt natural. 1 week before the summit, X faced his biggest challenge yet. His dad started getting nervous about bringing X to such an important event. "Maybe you should stay home with Mom," Elon said one evening while they were eating dinner. "The summit is going to be really long, and there will be a lot of serious discussions about complicated topics." X's stomach dropped. If he couldn't go to the summit, his plan would fail completely. "But you promised I could come," X said, trying not to sound as panicked as he felt. "I really want to see you give your speech." "I know, buddy, but I'm worried. You'll get bored and restless. It's not like the fun science demonstrations we do at home." X looked at his mom for help, but she seemed to agree with his dad. "What if we watch it on TV instead?" Grimes suggested. "We could make popcorn and cheer for Dad from the couch." "That's not the same," X said. He needed to be there in person. "Please, Dad, I promise I'll be the best kid ever. I'll sit perfectly, still, and be completely quiet." Elon studied his son's face. X tried to look as sincere and trustworthy as possible. "Why is this so important to you?" Elon asked. X had to be very careful with his answer. He couldn't reveal his real plan, but he needed to convince his dad to let him come. "Because," X said slowly, "I want to see what it looks like when someone tells the whole world something important. I want to understand how you help people learn about the future." That answer was actually true, even though it wasn't the whole truth. Elon smiled. "Okay, you can come, but you have to promise to behave perfectly." "I promise," X said solemnly. And he meant it. He would behave perfectly, right up until the moment when he shocked the world with the truth. March 15th, 2025. The day that would change everything. X woke up before his alarm clock even had a chance to ring. Sunlight was just starting to peek through his bedroom curtains. His stomach felt like it was full of butterflies doing somersaults. Today was the day he would tell 20,000 people in person, and millions more around the world, the secrets that adults had been hiding. X got dressed carefully in the clothes his mom had picked out the night before. A nice blue button-up, shirt, dark pants, and his best shoes. He looked in the mirror and practiced his opening line one more time. "Hello, everyone. My name is X. I want to tell you something important about my family." His voice sounded steady, even though his heart was beating fast. Downstairs, his parents were already awake and busy getting ready. His dad was wearing a black suit and tie, looking more formal than X had ever seen him. His mom had on a pretty green dress and was putting on lipstick in the hallway mirror. "Big day, buddy," Elon said when X came into the kitchen. "Are you excited to see Dad give his speech?" "Very excited," X said. That was completely true, though not for the reasons his dad thought. At breakfast, X could barely eat his cereal. His stomach was too nervous and excited. He kept touching the pocket of his shirt, where he had folded up his speech, written in his own careful handwriting on a piece of paper. "You seem quiet this morning," his mom noticed. "Are you feeling okay?" "Just thinking," X said, "about all the important people who will be there today." "Well, remember what we talked about," Elon said. "You'll need to sit very still and be very quiet during all the speeches. There will be world leaders and scientists and business executives. Everyone will be listening carefully to very serious discussions." X nodded seriously. "I understand, Dad. I'll be perfect." And he would be perfect, perfectly honest about what the world needed to know. They left for the Austin Convention Center at noon. The drive took 20 minutes through busy Austin traffic. X pressed his face to the car window, watching the city go by. Soon, they would be at the place where his life, and maybe the whole world, would change forever. The convention center was enormous. X had driven past it many times, but he had never been inside. The building looked like a huge glass box with flags from every country hanging outside. News trucks lined the street like a parade of white and blue vehicles. Reporters rushed around carrying cameras and microphones, their voices mixing together in an excited buzz. "Wow," X whispered as they walked toward the entrance. "Pretty impressive, huh?" his dad said. This is where some of the most important conversations about humanity's future happen. X touched the speech in his pocket again. He was about to add his own voice to those important conversations. Inside the convention center, X's eyes went wide. The main hall was bigger than anything he had ever seen. Thousands and thousands of seats faced a huge stage with bright lights and giant video screens. People in suits and fancy dresses filled the seats, talking in dozens of different languages. "There must be people here from every country in the world," X said in amazement. "Pretty close," his mom agreed. "The Global Future Summit brings together leaders from everywhere to talk about what's coming next for our planet." X felt a shiver run down his spine. Our planet. That's exactly what he wanted to talk about. They went to a special waiting area, backstage, where speakers prepared for their presentations. X met other families who had come to support their loved ones. Everyone was dressed up and acting very important and serious. At 2 p.m., it was almost time for his dad's speech. X could hear the crowd in the main hall getting quiet as the event host prepared to introduce the next speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen," came a woman's voice over the loudspeakers, "please welcome Elon Musk, CEO of SpaceX and Tesla, to discuss humanity's future among the stars." The sound of 20,000 people clapping filled the convention center like thunder. X felt proud of his dad, but also nervous about what he was planning to do. Elon hugged X and his mom goodbye. "Wish me luck," he said. "You don't need luck, Dad," X said. "Just tell them the truth." Elon smiled and walked out onto the stage. X watched from the side as his dad waved to the huge audience. The crowd loved Elon Musk. They cheered and clapped for almost a full minute before he could start talking. X listened to his dad's speech about Mars colonies and space exploration. Elon talked about the amazing technology that would let humans live on other planets. He mentioned climate change, but he didn't talk about how scary and urgent it really was. He kept the most frightening parts secret, just like he always did. Just like all the adults always did. When Elon finished his speech, the crowd jumped to their feet and clapped loudly. X's dad had given a great presentation, but X knew there was so much more that people needed to hear. As Elon started to walk off the stage, the event host, Dr. Sarah Chen, stopped him with a gentle hand on his arm. "Mr. Musk," she said into her microphone, "I understand your son is here with us today. Many of our audience members are parents themselves, and we always love to meet the next generation. Would X like to come out and say hello to our audience?" X's heart started pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. This was it. This was his moment. Elon looked surprised, but smiled. "Sure, if he wants to." Elon walked over to where X was waiting in the wings. "Hey, buddy, want to come wave at all these people?" X took a deep breath. Everything he had planned for months came down to this moment. "Can I say something to them?" "Just keep it short, okay?" his dad said. "Maybe thank them for listening to my speech?" X nodded, but he had no intention of keeping it short. And he definitely wasn't planning to just thank people for listening. X walked out onto the huge stage. The lights were so bright he could barely see the audience, but he could feel 20,000 pairs of eyes watching him. He looked so small next to the enormous microphone that a technician quickly came out to adjust it down to his height. The crowd started clapping again, but gently this time, the kind of soft, sweet clapping that adults do when they see a cute little kid. They had no idea that this cute little kid was about to change their lives forever. X stepped up to the microphone. The convention center fell completely silent. Not just quiet, silent. 20,000 people holding their breath, waiting to hear what a 5-year-old boy had to say. Around the world, millions more people watched on their televisions and computers, probably expecting something adorable and harmless. Looked out at all those faces. For just a second, he almost lost his courage. These were the most important people in the world. Presidents, prime ministers, scientists, business leaders. Who was he to tell them they were wrong about keeping secrets? But then X thought about all the kids who didn't know what was coming. All the families who weren't getting ready because no one had told them the truth. All the people who trusted their leaders to be honest with them. X pulled his speech out of his pocket and unfolded it carefully. His hands were shaking just a little, but his voice was going to be strong. This was it. The moment that would shock the world. X stepped closer to the microphone. His folded speech paper felt tiny in his small hands, but the words written on it were about to change everything. The massive convention center was so quiet that X could hear his own heartbeat. 20,000 faces stared at him from the audience. Millions more watched on screens around the world. They all expected something sweet and simple from a 5-year-old boy. X looked directly into the main camera that was broadcasting live to every continent on Earth. He took one deep breath and began. "Hello, everyone," X said. His voice was small, but perfectly clear. "My name is X. I want to tell you something important about my family." The audience smiled warmly. A few people said, "Oh," under their breath. They still thought they were about to hear something cute about life with Elon Musk. But X's next words made every smile disappear. "My dad has a big secret," X continued, his voice growing stronger. "It's about why he really wants to go to Mars. It's not what you think." A wave of surprised gasps swept through the convention center like wind through tall grass. People sat up straighter in their seats. The gentle smiles faded from their faces. Something serious was happening. Elon, watching from the side of the stage, went completely pale. His hands started shaking. This was not what he had expected his son to say. Around the world, people watching on TV and computers leaned closer to their screens. News reporters started typing frantically on their phones. Everyone could feel that something big was about to happen. X looked at his dad for just a moment. Elon's eyes were wide with worry and surprise, but X had come too far. "To stop now. My dad wants to go to Mars because he thinks something really bad will happen to Earth," X said clearly. "Something bad and soon." The convention center erupted in surprised murmurs. People turned to each other with confused and worried faces. What was this child talking about? X unfolded his speech and began reading from it, his voice steady and serious. "6 months ago, I found papers in my dad's desk. They talked about something called Earth Evacuation Protocol. That means plans to help people leave Earth when it gets too dangerous to live here." The murmurs turned into louder conversations. Some people gasped. Others looked scared. News reporters in the audience started talking quickly into their phones. "I also heard my dad talking to other very important people," X continued. "Jeff Bezos came to our house. So did Bill Gates. They had a secret meeting in my dad's study." Now, the audience was truly shocked. People started standing up in their seats. Security guards began moving toward the stage, but the event organizers waved them back. Everyone wanted to hear what this remarkable child had to say. They talked about how the ice in Antarctica is melting really, really fast. X read from his paper. They said the weather will get crazy and dangerous. They said billions of people will need new homes. The convention center was now filled with the sound of thousands of people talking at once. Some sounded scared. Others sounded angry. Many sounded confused. But X wasn't finished. He looked up from his paper and spoke directly to the camera again. They said we only have 20 years, maybe less, before Earth becomes too dangerous for lots of people to live on. The noise from the audience grew even louder. X had to raise his voice to be heard over the commotion. "My dad isn't just building rockets because space is cool," X said, his voice growing more confident with each word. "He's building rockets because he thinks we need a backup planet. Mars is supposed to be our backup home when Earth gets too sick." Reporters were now openly shouting questions from the audience, but X kept talking. He had practiced this speech so many times that nothing could stop him from finishing it. "But here's the thing that makes me really, really sad," X said. And for the first time, his voice started to shake with emotion. The audience grew quieter, sensing that the most important part was coming. Mars can only hold some people, not everyone. So the grown-ups in that meeting were talking about who gets to go to the safe place and who has to stay on the dangerous planet. Tears started rolling down X's cheeks, but his voice remained strong and clear. "I don't think that's fair. I don't think some people should get to be safe while others stay in danger. And I don't think it's okay for adults to keep secrets about our planet dying." The convention center was now in complete chaos. Some people were crying. Others were shouting questions. Many looked angry or scared or both. But X raised his voice, above all the noise, to deliver his most important message. "Kids deserve to know the truth too," X shouted into the microphone. "We live on this planet. We should get to help decide what to do about it." The noise level reached a crescendo. People were standing, pointing, arguing with each other. Camera flashes went off like lightning. Security guards looked confused about whether they should intervene. Through all the chaos, Elon finally broke free from his shock and rushed onto the stage. He knelt down next to his son, putting a protective arm around X's small shoulders. "X, that's enough," Elon whispered urgently, trying to pull his son away from the microphone. But X had one more thing to say. He looked back at the audience, at the cameras, at the whole world that was watching. "My dad always says, we should work together to solve big problems," X said, his voice carrying over the noise. "Well, Earth getting sick is the biggest problem, ever. So why are we keeping it secret? Why aren't we all working together to fix it?" The crowd's reaction was a mixture of everything. Applause, shouting, crying, anger, and confusion all mixed together into a sound unlike anything anyone had ever heard. Looked at his father, whose face showed a mixture of pride, terror, and amazement. "I'm sorry, Daddy," X said quietly, though the microphone picked up his words and sent them around the world. "But I think people needed to know." For a moment, the entire convention center fell silent again. 20,000 people stared at this brave 5-year-old boy who had just revealed secrets that were supposed to stay hidden for years. Then Elon did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He stood up and took the microphone from his son. The whole world held its breath, waiting to see what the father would say about his son's shocking revelation. Would he deny everything? Would he be angry? Would he try to take back the words that had just changed everything? Elon looked out at the audience of world leaders, scientists, and reporters. He looked at the cameras broadcasting to billions of people around the globe. He looked down at his son, who had just risked everything to tell the truth. And then Elon Musk made a decision that would define the rest of human history. "My son is right," he said into the microphone. The convention center exploded in the loudest, reaction yet. People jumped to their feet. Cameras flashed like a lightning storm. The sound was so loud it seemed to shake the building itself. But Elon wasn't finished. He had something very important to add to his son's shocking revelation. Elon looked out at the crowd of 20,000 people who were shouting, crying, and demanding answers. He looked at the cameras that were broadcasting this moment to every corner of the world. His son had just revealed secrets that were supposed to stay hidden for years. Secrets that could cause panic, riots, or worse. But as Elon looked down at X, this brave, brilliant 5-year-old who had risked everything to tell the truth, he realized something that changed everything. His son was absolutely right. "My son is right," Elon said again into the microphone, his voice growing stronger and more confident. "And I owe all of you an explanation." The convention center gradually grew quieter as people realized that Elon Musk was about to tell them even more shocking truths. X has shared information that world leaders have been keeping private, Elon continued, his hand still resting protectively on his son's shoulder. "We thought we were protecting people by staying quiet about how serious Earth's climate crisis really is." The audience was now completely silent, hanging on every word. "But my 5-year-old son just taught me something that all of us adults forgot." Elon's voice filled with emotion. "You can't solve a problem by pretending it doesn't exist. And you can't ask people to trust you if you're not willing to trust them with the truth." He looked directly into the main camera, speaking to the billions of people watching around the world. "Everything X told you is completely true. Climate change is happening much faster than we've told the public. The ice sheets in Antarctica and Greenland are melting 3 times faster than our worst predictions from just 2 years ago." People in the audience started crying. Others looked terrified. Many appeared angry that they had been lied to for so long. "The ocean currents that control weather around the world are already changing," Elon continued. "We're going to see storms, droughts, and floods, unlike anything in human history. Some places will become completely unlivable. And yes, billions of people may need to find new homes." A woman in the front row stood up and shouted, "How long do we have?" Elon looked at her sadly. "According to our best scientists, 20 years before the worst effects begin. Maybe less." The convention center erupted again, but Elon raised his hand for quiet. "But here's what my son didn't tell you," Elon said, "because he's only 5 years old and doesn't know this part yet." X looked up at his dad with curious eyes. What else was there to know? "We are not giving up on Earth," Elon declared firmly. "Mars isn't our only plan. Mars is our backup plan." The audience leaned forward, eager to hear more. Right now, at this very moment, there are brilliant scientists working on solutions that could help heal our planet. New technologies that can pull carbon dioxide out of the air and turn it into useful materials. Methods to slow down ice melting using special reflective materials. Systems to help cities adapt to rising seas and changing weather. For the first time since X's speech began, some people in the audience looked hopeful instead of terrified. "The reason we've been keeping quiet isn't because we don't think Earth can be saved," Elon explained. "It's because we wanted to have more solutions ready before we told everyone how bad things really are." X tugged on his dad's jacket. Elon bent down so X could whisper in his ear. "Tell them kids want to help too," X whispered. Elon smiled and stood back up. "My son wants me to tell you something else. Kids want to help solve this problem too. And he's absolutely right about that." The cameras zoomed in on X's serious little face as his dad continued. "This is their planet even more than it's ours. They're going to live here longer than we will. They deserve to know what's happening. and they deserve to be part of finding solutions. Elon paused and looked around the enormous convention center. Young people see things differently than adults do. They ask questions we don't think to ask. They imagine possibilities we can't see because we're stuck thinking about how things have always been done. The audience was listening carefully now, the panic starting to give way to curiosity and hope. "So here's what we're going to do," Elon announced. "In the next 6 months, we're going to share all the climate data we have, the scary parts and the hopeful parts. We're going to show you the technologies being developed to help Earth heal." People started nodding, and some even began to clap. "We're also going to create new programs where young people can learn about climate science and contribute their own ideas. Because a 5-year-old just proved that kids can see solutions that adults miss." Elon looked down at X with obvious pride. "My son took a huge risk today. He could have gotten in trouble. Our family could have faced serious consequences. But he did it anyway because he believed it was the right thing to do." The applause grew louder and more sustained. "That's exactly the kind of courage we need to solve climate change. Not hiding from the problem, but facing it head-on. Not keeping secrets, but working together. Not just adults making decisions for kids, but kids and adults making decisions together." The standing ovation that followed was thunderous. People were clapping, cheering, and many were crying happy tears instead of scared ones. But Elon had one more surprise for the world. "There's something else," he said when the applause died down. "Something that will happen much sooner than 6 months." The audience grew quiet again, wondering what other shocking news was coming. "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to post all of our climate data online, where everyone can see it. Scientists, students, kids, parents, anyone who wants to help solve this problem will have access to the same information that world leaders have been discussing in private." The crowd erupted again, but this time the sound was different. It was excitement and hope instead of fear and anger. "And next week," Elon continued, "we're launching something called the Global Youth Climate Council. Young people from around the world will help decide how to spend billions of dollars on climate solutions." X's eyes went wide. A council where kids could help make important decisions. That was even better than he had hoped for. "The first meeting will be in 1 month, right here in Austin," Elon said. "And X will be the youngest member of the council." X looked up at his dad in amazement. "Really? Really?" Elon said, ruffling his son's hair. "You started this revolution, buddy. You should help lead it." The convention center was now filled with cheering that seemed to go on forever. People were standing, clapping, hugging each other, and wiping away tears. But the biggest surprise was still coming. Dr. Sarah Chen, the event host, took the microphone back from Elon. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced, "we've just witnessed something unprecedented in the history of the Global Future Summit." She paused dramatically. "For the first time ever, our youngest speaker has also given us our most important message. I think we can all agree that the future of humanity just became much brighter because a 5-year-old boy had the courage to tell us the truth." Durteed, applause was so loud, it seemed to shake the building. "But I have one more surprise," Dr. Chen continued. "The Global Future Summit Board has just made an unanimous decision. From now on, every summit will include a Youth Truth Session where young people can share what they think the world needs to hear." X's mouth fell open. Other kids would get to speak at future summits too? And, Dr. Chen added with a smile, Elon Musk will be our first youth ambassador, helping to choose which young voices the world needs to hear next. As the crowd cheered again, X realized that his plan had worked even better than he had dreamed. He hadn't just told the world one shocking truth. He had opened the door for kids everywhere to be heard on the biggest stage in the world. But the most amazing thing was still about to happen. As X and his family left the Austin Convention Center that evening, they had no idea how completely their lives were about to change. The video of X's speech was already spreading across the internet faster than anything in history. Within 1 hour of the speech ending, Dr. X Musk truth was trending on every social media platform in the world. The video had been viewed 50 million times before X even got home to Austin. Within 3 hours, news channels on every continent had interrupted their regular programs to discuss what reporters were calling the child's climate confession. The video was being translated into dozens of languages. Within 6 hours, world leaders were calling emergency meetings to discuss how to respond to the shocking revelations. But the most amazing response came from somewhere no one expected. It came from kids. That very evening, while X was eating dinner with his parents and trying to understand what had just happened, children around the world started making their own videos. A 7-year-old girl named Aria in Tokyo, Japan, posted a video from her bedroom. "My name is Aria," she said in careful English. "I saw X tell the truth about Earth today. I want to help too. In Japan, we have lots of earthquakes and tsunamis. I think kids here have good ideas about how to build safe houses that can float on water when the seas get higher." A 10-year-old boy named Carlos in São Paulo, Brazil, made a video in his backyard. "X is right that kids should help," he said in Portuguese, with English subtitles. "My grandmother taught me how to plant trees that grow really fast. I want to plant 1 million trees to help clean the air. Who wants to help me?" A 12-year-old girl named Amara in Nairobi, Kenya, filmed herself walking through her neighborhood. "The rains here have been different for 3 years," she explained. "Too much rain, then no rain at all. But my school invented a way to collect rainwater and save it for when we need it. We can teach other kids how to do this too." Within 24 hours, the hashtag #Kids for Earth was spreading even faster than the original video of X's speech. Children from every country were posting videos, sharing ideas, and asking how they could help solve climate change. But it wasn't just kids who were responding. The day after X's speech, something unprecedented happened in world politics. The President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada, the President of France, and the Chancellor of Germany all called press conferences at exactly the same time. Standing at podiums in their own countries, they made nearly identical announcements. A 5-year-old child showed more courage yesterday than most world leaders show in their entire careers, said the President of the United States. "If a kindergartner can tell the truth about climate change, then we can too." Each leader announced that their country would immediately share all their secret climate research with the public. They also promised to create youth advisory councils where kids and teenagers would help make decisions about climate policy. But the most surprising response came from the business world. 3 days after X's speech, 25 of the richest people on Earth held a joint press conference. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and the other billionaires who had attended the secret meeting at X's house stood together in front of cameras. "We owe the world an apology," Jeff Bezos said. "We thought we were being responsible by keeping climate information private until we had solutions ready. But Musk taught us that hiding the truth doesn't protect anyone. It just prevents people from helping solve the problem." The billionaires announced the creation of the largest climate fund in history, $500 billion to fight climate change. But here was the amazing part. Half the money would be spent on projects chosen by young people under 18. Kids will decide how to spend $250 billion, Bill Gates explained, because this is their planet. And they've already shown us they have ideas we never thought of. 1 week after X's speech, he received a letter that made him cry happy tears. The envelope was covered in colorful stamps from Bangladesh, and inside was a handwritten note from an 8-year-old girl named Maya. "Dear X," the letter said, in careful English. "My name is Maya Rahman. I live in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Every year, floods come to my neighborhood because the sea is getting higher. My family's house goes underwater for 2 months every year. Before your speech, the grown-ups in my country knew about the floods, but they didn't tell us kids what was really happening. They just said, 'Don't worry, and the floods will stop someday.' But after you told the truth on TV, everything changed. Now, the adults are teaching us kids about climate change and sea levels. They're asking for our ideas about how to live with the floods. My class invented something called floating gardens. They're special boxes that can grow vegetables even when they're floating on floodwater. Now we can still have food during flood season. I'm not scared anymore, because now I understand what's happening and I can help fix it. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth. You showed me that kids don't have to wait for grown-ups to solve problems. We can help solve them too. Your friend, Maya." He showed the letter to his parents with tears in his eyes. "See," he said to his mom and dad, "kids aren't babies. We can handle scary things if adults help us understand them and let us help fix them." His mom hugged him tight. "You were right, sweetheart. You were right about everything." But the responses kept getting more amazing. 2 weeks after the speech, scientists around the world started sharing discoveries they had been keeping quiet. Not because they wanted to hide them, but because they weren't sure the discoveries would work yet. A team of researchers in Norway announced they had figured out how to turn carbon dioxide from the air into solid rock that could be buried underground forever. A group of scientists in Brazil revealed they had developed new types of trees that could absorb carbon dioxide 10 times faster than normal trees. Engineers in the Netherlands shared plans for floating cities that could rise and fall with sea levels, keeping people safe even if oceans got much higher. Inventors in India announced solar panels that could work even on cloudy days, making clean energy possible everywhere. It's like X's honesty gave everyone permission to be hopeful again, his mom told a reporter from the Austin newspaper. The most incredible response came 1 month after the speech, when the first meeting of the Global Youth Climate Council took place. 100 young people from around the world came to Austin, Texas. They ranged in age from X, who was 5, to Maria Santos, who was 17 and lived in Brazil. Together, they represented kids from every continent and every type of community. From big cities to small farms, from islands that were disappearing under rising seas, to mountains where glaciers were melting. For 5 days, they worked together to create a plan for spending the billions of dollars that had been donated to fight climate change. But their ideas were different from anything adults had proposed. Instead of just building seawalls to keep water out, they designed floating neighborhoods that could move with rising seas. Instead of just planting trees to absorb carbon dioxide, they created plans for underwater forests made of special seaweed. Instead of just building solar panels in empty deserts, they designed ways to put solar collectors on every school roof in the world. Kids think differently than grown-ups, X explained to a news reporter during the council meeting. Grown-ups try to stop bad things from happening. Kids try to imagine how to make good things happen instead. On the last day of the council meeting, something magical occurred. Maria Santos, the 17-year-old council president asked X to make the closing speech to the other council members. X stood up in front of 99 other young people from around the world and said something that would be remembered forever. 6 months ago, I was just a little kid who found scary papers in my dad's desk. I thought grown-ups were keeping secrets because they didn't trust kids to help solve problems. But now, I know something different. Grown-ups were keeping secrets because they forgot that kids and adults working together are stronger than either group working alone. Climate change is still scary. Moving to Mars is still hard. But now, we're not trying to solve these problems by ourselves. We're solving them together. And that's not scary anymore. That's exciting. As the other council members stood and cheered, X realized that his speech 6 months ago had done something he never expected. It hadn't just revealed secrets, it had created a whole new way for the world to work together. But there was still one more surprise waiting for him. 6 months after X's speech that shocked the world, everything had changed. The Global Youth Climate Council had grown from 100 members to 10,000 young people from every country on Earth. Scientists were sharing discoveries faster than ever before. World leaders were working together instead of keeping secrets. But the biggest change was happening in space. X was playing with rocket models in his bedroom when his dad knocked on the door. "Hey, buddy, can we talk?" Elon asked, sitting on X's bed next to a pile of toy spaceships. "Sure, Dad. What's up?" Elon picked up one of X's toy rockets and spun it slowly in his hands. "Remember when you first asked me why I wanted to go to Mars?" X nodded. "You said it was because something bad might happen to Earth." "That's right. And you thought that wasn't fair? Because not everyone could go to Mars." "I still think that," X said seriously. "Mars can only hold a few million people. Earth has billions of people." Elon smiled. "Well, what if I told you that the Global Youth Climate Council just came up with an idea that nobody, not even the smartest adults, ever thought of before?" X's eyes lit up with curiosity. "What kind of idea?" The council met last week in Geneva, Switzerland. Maria Santos and the other older kids presented something they called the New Plan. And it's brilliant. Elon set down the toy rocket and looked at his son with pride. "They said that adults have been thinking about this all wrong. We've been acting like we have to choose between saving Earth or building cities on Mars. But kids don't think that way." "What do you mean?" X asked. "The council thinks we should do both. Save Earth and build cities on Mars. Not because we're giving up on our planet, but because humans are explorers. We're supposed to live in lots of places." X tilted his head, thinking hard. "So Mars wouldn't be a backup plan anymore?" "Exactly. It would be an expansion plan. Like when a family gets bigger and moves to a larger house, but they don't throw away their old house. They might keep both houses and use them for different things." X was getting excited now. "So people could live on Earth and Mars?" "That's right. And here's the really cool part. The things we learn about surviving on Mars will help us take better care of Earth too." Elon pulled out his phone and showed X pictures from the council meeting. There were teenagers from around the world standing in front of a huge screen showing planets and spaceships. Maria Santos explained it like this, Elon continued. "When we figure out how to clean air on Mars, we can use that same technology to clean air on Earth. When we learn how to grow food in space, we can grow food in places on Earth where plants don't usually grow." "Like in deserts?" X asked. "Exactly. Like in deserts. And in places that flood a lot. And in cities where there isn't much room for farms." X was practically bouncing with excitement. "So, going to Mars would actually help Earth get better?" The council thinks so. And you know what? After 6 months of working with kids from around the world, I think they're right. Elon showed X another picture on his phone. It was a drawing that looked like a rocket, but different from any rocket X had ever seen. This is another idea from the council. They want to build spaceships that kids help design. Not just toys or models, but real rockets that will carry people to Mars. X's mouth fell open. Kids would help design real spaceships? The council said that kids see problems differently than adults do. They notice things we miss. They ask questions we don't think to ask. So why shouldn't they help design the most important machines humans have ever built? X stared at the drawing on his dad's phone. The rocket had windows in unusual places, and what looked like gardens growing inside it, and solar panels that moved like flower petals following the sun. "It looks different from your rockets," X observed. "That's because kids thought of things I never thought of. Like how people might get lonely on the long trip to Mars, so the ship needs bigger windows to look out at space. And how growing food during the journey would make people feel more at home." "Can I help design a rocket too?" X asked hopefully. Elon grinned. "That's actually why I came to talk to you." The council voted unanimously on something. They want you to be the leader of the first kids' rocket design team. X's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? They said you started this whole movement by being brave enough to tell the truth. Now they want you to help design the rocket that will carry the first families to Mars." "Families?" X repeated. "That's another idea from the council. Instead of just sending astronauts to Mars, they think we should send families, kids and parents together. Because Mars colonies shouldn't just be workplaces. They should be homes where children can grow, up and play and go to school." X thought about this for a moment. "So kids who are born on Mars would be Martians?" "I guess they would be," Elon laughed. "Earth kids and Mars kids, all working together to take care of both planets." X jumped up from his bed and started pacing around his room, his mind racing with possibilities. "Dad, what if we built rockets that could go back and forth between Earth and Mars really easily? Like buses, but for space." "That's exactly what," the council suggested. They called it the Solar System Transportation Network. "And what if Mars kids could come visit Earth for summer vacation, and Earth kids could go to Mars to see what it's like?" Now you're thinking like the council. They want space travel to be normal, not scary. X stopped pacing and looked at his dad with serious eyes. "Is this really going to happen? Are we really going to save Earth and build cities on Mars?" Elon nodded. "Thanks to you, buddy. Your speech didn't just reveal secrets. It made everyone realize that we're stronger when we work together, instead of keeping things hidden. But will it work? Can we really fix Earth's climate and live on Mars at the same time?" "I don't know," Elon said honestly. "But I know we have a much better chance now than we did before. Because now we have billions of people working on solutions instead of just a few hundred keeping secrets." X picked up his favorite toy rocket and held it up to the light coming through his bedroom window. "Dad, when you first wanted to go to Mars, you were scared about Earth dying, right? Very scared. But now, you're not scared anymore?" Elon thought for a moment. "I'm still worried about climate change. It's still a big problem. But I'm not scared the same way I was before." "Why not?" "Because now I know something I didn't know. 6 months ago, when people work together, especially when kids and adults work together, they can solve problems that seem impossible." X smiled and set his toy rocket on his desk next to his homework. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Of course. I'm not scared about the future anymore either. Climate change is still scary, and going to Mars will be hard. But now I know that kids get to help decide what happens next. And that makes you feel better? It makes me feel excited, like we're not just trying to survive anymore. We're trying to build something amazing. Elon hugged his son tightly. You know what, X? I think that might be the most important thing you've ever said. That evening, X called Maria Santos on video chat to talk about the rocket design project. She appeared on his computer screen from her home in São Paulo, Brazil. X, Maria said with a big smile. Are you ready to help design the coolest spaceship ever? Definitely. But I have one idea that might sound weird. Weird ideas are the best ideas. What is it? X took a deep breath. What if we call it the Hope Rocket? Maria's smile grew even bigger. X, that's not weird at all. That's perfect. As they talked about their plans for the Hope Rocket, X realized something wonderful. 6 months ago, he had been a scared little kid who found frightening secrets in his dad's desk. Now he was a confident young person helping to design humanity's future among the stars. And the best part was, he wasn't doing it alone. He was doing it with kids and adults from all over the world, all working together to make both Earth and Mars amazing places to live. But there was still one more thing X needed to understand about how his brave speech had changed everything. 1 year after X's shocking speech at the Global Future Summit, he was invited back to Austin Convention Center for the next summit. But this time, he wasn't sitting in the audience watching his dad speak. This time, X was one of the main speakers. The theme of this year's summit was Hope Rising, How Truth Changed the World. X was scheduled to give the opening speech to kick off 3 days of presentations about everything that had happened since his 5-year-old self had revealed the climate secrets. The night before his speech, X couldn't sleep. Not because he was nervous. He had given dozens of speeches over the past year to kids' groups and climate organizations. He couldn't sleep because he was thinking about something his mom had said at dinner. You know, X, Grimes had told him, while they ate pizza in their hotel room, you changed more than just climate policy with your speech. You changed how the whole world thinks about kids. What do you mean? X had asked. Before your speech, most adults thought kids needed to be protected from scary information. Now adults understand that kids can handle difficult truths if they're allowed to help solve the problems. X had been thinking about that conversation all night. Was that really what his speech had done? The next morning, as X walked onto the same stage where he had shocked the world 1 year earlier, he saw 20,000 faces looking back at him. But these faces looked different than they had a year ago. Instead of expecting something cute from a little kid, these people were ready to listen seriously to what a 6-year-old had to say. Hello, everyone, X began, his voice now confident and strong. My name is X. Last year, I stood on this stage and told you a secret that adults had been keeping from kids. The audience was completely quiet, remembering that amazing day. I told you that my dad and other important people knew Earth's climate was getting sick much faster than they had told everyone. I told you they were making plans for some people to go to Mars, while others stayed on a dangerous planet. X paused and looked around the enormous convention center. A lot of people have asked me why I decided to tell those secrets. Some people think I was angry at my dad for lying. Some people think I was trying to scare everyone. Some people think I was just a little kid who didn't understand how serious those secrets were. X smiled and shook his head. But none of those things are true. I told those secrets because I learned something that I want to share with you today. Chandro. Audience leaned forward, eager to hear what X had discovered. The real secret wasn't that Earth's climate was getting sick. Scientists have been studying that for decades. The real secret wasn't that some people were planning to go to Mars. My dad has been talking about Mars my whole life." X's voice grew stronger as he continued. The real secret was that adults had forgotten something very important about kids. He looked directly into the main camera that was broadcasting to billions of people around the world. Adults forgot that kids aren't just small people who need to be protected from scary things. Kids are smart people who can help solve big problems if you give them the chance. The audience started nodding and some people began to clap. When I found those papers in my dad's desk, I wasn't scared because the information was too hard for me to understand. I was scared because I realized that billions of kids around the world were making plans for futures that might never happen. And nobody was telling them the truth. X pulled out a piece of paper from his pocket. Not a speech, this time, but a letter. "I want to read you something. This is from a 13-year-old girl named Elena, who lives in the Philippines. She wrote to me last month." X unfolded the letter and began to read. "Dear X, my name is Elena Cruz. I live on an island that gets hit by bigger storms every year because of climate change. Before your speech, the adults in my town would just tell us kids to not worry when storms came. They thought they were protecting us by not explaining what was really happening." X looked up from the letter. But Elena wasn't protected by not knowing. She was scared because she didn't understand. He continued reading. "After your speech, everything changed in my town. The adults started teaching us kids about climate science and storm preparation. Now, I'm not scared when storms come because I understand how they work and what we can do to stay safe. Even better, my class invented a new type of storm shelter that's stronger and cheaper than the old ones. We're teaching adults in other towns how to build them too." X folded the letter and put it back in his pocket. Elena's story shows us something amazing. When adults stopped trying to protect kids from scary information and started letting kids help solve problems, both the kids and the adults got stronger. The applause was getting louder now. That's what really changed when I gave my speech last year. I didn't just reveal climate secrets. I proved that kids can handle big, scary problems if adults trust us enough to let us help. X walked closer to the edge of the stage, speaking directly to the people in the front rows. Over the past year, kids around the world have helped design new technologies to fight climate change. Kids have come up with ideas for floating cities, and underwater farms and rockets that families can live in. Kids have started climate clubs in 10,000 schools and planted 50 million new trees. The crowd was getting excited, remembering all the amazing things that had happened. "But here's the most important thing," X said, his voice filling with emotion. "Kids didn't do those things because we're smarter than adults. We did them because adults finally let us work together with them as partners instead of treating us like people who needed to be protected from the truth." X paused and looked around the convention center one more time. "So the real secret I revealed last year wasn't about Mars or climate change or evacuation protocols. The real secret was that kids and adults working together can solve problems that neither group can solve alone." The standing ovation was immediate and thunderous. People were crying happy tears and cheering so loudly that X had to wait several minutes before he could continue. When the applause finally died down, X had one more thing to say. "Next month, the first Hope rocket will launch from SpaceX with a crew of 12 people, 6 adults and 6 kids, all traveling to Mars together as families. But they're not going as refugees fleeing a dying planet. They're going as explorers building humanity's second home while the rest of us work to heal our first home." The crowd erupted again, but X raised his hand for quiet. "And in 2 weeks, kids from around the world will present their latest climate solutions at the first ever Global Youth Science Fair. These aren't school projects or cute demonstrations. These are real technologies that could help save our planet. And this time, adults will be in the audience learning from kids, instead of the other way around. X smiled as he delivered his final words. 1 year ago, I was a scared 5-year-old who thought adults were keeping secrets because they didn't trust kids. Now, I'm a confident 6-year-old who knows that adults and kids can trust each other to solve the biggest problems in the universe. 3. Future isn't something that happens to us. It's something we build together. And when kids and adults build the future together, it turns out better than either group could imagine on their own. As X walked off the stage to the loudest applause in Global Future Summit history, he finally understood the most important thing about his shocking speech. He hadn't just revealed secrets about climate change and Mars, he had revealed something much more powerful. That when people stop hiding the truth from each other and start working together to solve problems, impossible things become possible. That was the secret that had truly changed the world. As X hugged his parents backstage, he thought about all the kids around the world who were no longer afraid of the future because they were helping to create it. He thought about the adults who had learned to see children as partners instead of people to protect. He thought about the Hope rocket that would soon carry families to Mars, and the floating cities being built to handle rising seas, and the new technologies that were already making Earth's air cleaner. All of it had started with one simple idea. Telling the truth is better than keeping secrets, even when the truth is scary. Especially when the truth is scary. Because scary truths shared with people you trust become solvable problems. And solvable problems shared by kids and adults working together become opportunities to build something amazing. That was the real secret X had revealed to the world. And it was the most important secret of all. We'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell us your city or country. It's amazing to connect with viewers from around the globe who believe in the power of truth and hope. If this story inspired you or made you think differently about what kids can accomplish, please give this video a thumbs up. Your likes help us reach more people who need to hear these important messages. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. We're always sharing fascinating stories about courage, innovation, and people who dare to make a difference in the world. Most importantly, please share this video with your friends and family. Stories like X's remind us that truth-telling, kindness, and working together can create positive change. Help us spread awareness about the power we all have, no matter how young or old, to build a better future for everyone. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply tell the truth. Until next time, keep believing in the power of hope and courage.